South Africa has recently been ranked as having one of the highest percentages in distressed and struggling citizens. 1 in 4 employees have been diagnosed with a mental health condition. This tells us that we have a problem. Welcome to today's episode of Suits and Sneakers. And I'm sure you would have guessed we're talking about mental health, but more particularly, we are talking about high performers. Yes, you're that high performer I'm talking about. And what happens to you when you hit your burnout rate? But more importantly, are those fruit baskets that are full in our office spaces, are the posters on the walls that we see every day making a difference? 36% of South African employees experience excessive daily stress, and 71% are actively disengaged. Now, living in a country where depression and anxiety, affects more than 27% of the population, 1 in 4 employees have been diagnosed with a mental health condition. And those 1 in 4 really ranges between the ages of 25 to 44. But the reality is only 15 to 25% of those people actually come forward and disclose and seek and receive the help. Now, this tells us that we have a problem, but not just a problem that lives on its own. It's become an epidemic, and one that has cost this country over 200 billion rand, and something that I do believe is worth continuing to have the conversation about. Joining me for this conversation are 2 amazing guests, and I'm so honored to have you both here, ladies. I've got Nozipho Mathe-Qholosha, who is a registered clinical psychologist and really understands the intricacies around the psychology of human pressure. And I've got Lindi, who is a human capital subject matter expert, and she's really played a role in working closely with corporate environments in designing and landing, these wellness initiatives and programs and seeing them through. There is a gap. And ladies, it is a gap that I don't think we have as a society and as corporate South Africa done enough to bridge. Before we get into how, I'd like us to spend some time, Nozipho, around the what, right? The concept of a high performer, it's one that I've seen drummed a lot. Heck, I was a high performer. I've been a high performer for most of my life. And it is something that comes with its challenges. Can you perhaps, maybe give us some insights into the psychological process that happens when a high performer hits a burnout phase? And for some odd reason, they're just not able to bring themselves to seeking help. What is actually going on there?
Okay, thank you so much for having me. So the concept of high performers can be experienced by a person as a survival coping mechanism on a subconscious level, where they believe that in order to survive in the world, they need to keep busy, they need to work really hard, they need that external validation to confirm that they're good enough. Yes. And they are constantly in fight or flight mode, but nobody sees that because it happens on a subconscious level.
Now, that fight or flight mode, I think we all know the psychological and neurological processes of fight or flight are a result of a triggered trauma.
Yes. Trauma response. So the nervous system then equates the busyness, constant fight or flight as safety, because there is a way to avoid dealing with the underlying traumatic experience.
The topic of experiencing traumatic experience, sort of often brings me to what I've seen a lot in the work I've done. And I always talk and reflect on my experiences. Traumatic experiences exist in different various forms and they show up differently. But what I do know is they culminate and create the environments. Sometimes this concept of psychological safety, and it's another heavily drummed up word, and it is a topic that we're going to be covering in one of our episodes, just not today. But these traumatic experiences that high performers are usually carrying or responding to or from are culminated into these, environments where it doesn't quite feel as safe anymore, right? I always need to. I need to go over and above. What is lacking? Something there is driving this ongoing urge to do more, to do better, to do the next. What's happening? Like, what is lacking there?
So there are a lot of factors that are at play. So if we think about the psychological battles that a high performer has to constantly deal with, you have things like perfectionism.
Yes.
Where they set excessively high and unrealistic expectations, right?
Yeah.
What does that do? It sets them up to fail.
Yeah.
Right? And then internally, they have this very harsh, self-critical inner voice that consistently feeds back to them that they're not good enough.
Yeah.
They have to do better.
Yeah.
They're not intelligent enough. And imagine sitting with that battle in your mind. You're trying to just do the most. And it just sort of sets you up to fail and increases the anxiety. A lot of the times as well, you find that they are not aware of what actually is happening internally and physically, right? And that's what leads up to burnout over time. But the fear of having to say, I'm struggling,
is what's at play.
Is what cannot happen. Because what does admitting that you're struggling mean? It means I'm failing. And failing means weakness. Yeah.
And that's something that I think is a natural human response. People are afraid to say, I'm struggling. I'm not okay. There's a weakness in me. And I think it also sort of speaks to the philosophy of this particular podcast show. And it's, I always drum the fact that we are always going to show up in our shiny suits. But we are also equally very vulnerable human beings. And there's a level of authenticity that I think we are not always prepared. And perhaps the high performers are the ones that struggle the most with just being honest and genuine and authentic enough to say, I'm not okay, I'm not coping. But the question then becomes, with the high performers that are struggling and that limited sense of self-awareness, that don't even know I am struggling, but I'm just going to keep pushing. There's a link that I pick up in that the corporate wellness programs, and of course, that's now what we're going to really start getting into. However, there is a question. Are organizations just simply putting in place these interventions as an act of liability management, just to say we're doing something for the sake of having done something? Or do these actually deliver the care that is needed? You've seen a lot of patients come through your door that play and live in the workplaces that we're in. What do you think is happening?
So in my experience, I actually see quite a lot of people who come from organizations that do have employee assistance programs in place. So they differ. But I think the blanket approach is to try and look at wellness from a holistic perspective.
Yes.
So they'll deal with the financial side of things, the psychosocial.
Yes.
That brings in the mental health, the physical.
Yes.
But what I found is the focus is really on physical. They have a lot of interventions to manage health,
Fruit baskets. Fruit baskets.
Fruit baskets. And then when it comes to the mental health side, which is a little bit more complicated, they are not equipped to manage it completely. So they bring in people like myself. I am an affiliate of quite a few employee assistance programs. And you come in, you're on site and you see your patients. But what is lacking is an understanding, I think, from corporate that to unlearn unhealthy ways of coping, to unlearn harmful behavioral patterns that impact negatively on one's sense of self as well as how they show up in the workspace. It is
a journey.
It is a process. And what I find is the problem is that they will refer to say, we're doing something, but the rest is up to the employee. So you get your 5 sessions, and then the rest is for you to manage on your own medical.
Correct. Now that's a challenge, right? Because first and foremost, not everybody has high-end medical aids that cover extended programs, right? I think we all know the cost of medical aid right now. And the reality is we're then doing the service to our very people that we're expecting to show up every day in their best selves, but we're not actually giving them enough of the support. And we're kind of saying, we've done our part. Now you do yours. But the reality is corporate culture and the environment that is enabling plays such a role, a critical role in, being able to support people through mental health issues. And I think, Lindi, it brings me to perhaps what I'd like to get your perspective on from a corporate perspective. We are obviously inundated with mental health issues. And what Nozipho was alluding to was the fact that, a lot of the time people are afraid to come forward. There's a stigma associated with not being okay. In your space, you work with these people, and the joke I always say is, people in the space of human capital, human resource management are seen as the custodians of the people and the custodians of these EAP programs. But I think my question to you is, having been so involved, have you seen programs that you realized was just not what these people needed? And more importantly, what is perhaps one of the most surprising things that, leaders and executives say or do in the act of providing and being there for people, but it just misses the mark?
I think I was saying a bit earlier on, as I was writing here, this is just so exciting, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
You've touched on a very, very painful and as a very hurtful point, because it's one that really drives home a lot of the things that you try to escape from as an individual, right? And, when we talk about these people are us.
Yes, it's us.
It's us. Let's own the fact that it starts with us. And we are the execs. We are the excos. We are the leadership. We are the team leaders. We are the HR and human capital people that have to drive the conversation that is neutral to a point that it allows Nozipho to be able to have an honest and a transparent conversation. Because without that, it does not necessitate a fruitful and productive discussion. Why I say that is because sometimes you get into an environment and you are talking, it's a three-way conversation, and you find that the people that are supposed to be talking are not talking, right? These are your high-end, high performers, You give them work, they will run a mile with it. But when it comes to a mirror that has to now be reflected on them, it becomes a problem. It's like, it becomes an issue whereby someone now needs to go back and think about, oh my God, what are my kids going to eat? Oh my God, well, how am I going to...
There's the problem.
So it's all the intrinsic things that are happening psychologically, that internal battle that we have as individuals in terms of which pocket do I really tap on in this particular conversation that's not going to be seen as career limit in this conversation.
Now you're touching on the topic I wanted to get to. We are cascading KPIs. We're not cascading the support to get people to meet these KPIs. And the minute someone says, I'm not okay, instantly it's, well, then maybe you're not okay at all to be here. Maybe we need to take some work and give it to someone else. That's not actually what people are needing, right? The responses that are being offered or the support that's being given to employees is, I guess, the posters and the yoga Wednesdays and the fruit baskets and whatever else it is that these organizations are putting together. But no one's actually having a conversation with the people, who it affects the most. And then you're finding yourself here going, we don't even know which pockets to start tapping into because they themselves are not open. They're not prepared to talk. The then question becomes, what does support need to then look like?
Sure. I think support, based on experience, and I'm not going to give up
too much of your story. But you've got a story, right? I think, look,
I do.
the beauty of this particular platform is exactly that.
Yeah.
It's your story. Yeah. You don't have to go into it, but I love the fact that you're reflecting from your point. And because it doesn't resonate with anybody else if it's not resonating with you.
100%. And I think, it stems from, I touched on having the necessary tools. Having tools do not necessarily mean equipment. It means the right people.
Yes.
You mentioned role players.
Yeah.
You get into organizations, majority of the time is you find that even team leaders themselves do not even know how to engage in this conversation. That's the reality, right? Is that, where do you even begin?
When someone says, you're not okay, I'm not okay.
Wait.
Okay, I'm just going to take work from you.
Okay, hold on. Maybe let me call someone to come and help you. No.
But it's the tooling. It's the tooling. It's not having...
Yeah.
It's this, and I think perhaps it's our line managers, our executives are not equipped with the tools and the environments themselves that have the EAP programs. We have the social workers, we have your OTs,
Right.
but we don't have enough of them consistently enough. Right.
And we don't open up a platform whereby I can openly say, struggling today, not particularly with the work, but it's also not particularly with what I'm going through personally as an individual.
Yeah.
But it's actually something I'm going through that's affecting my child. And how do I open up that honest conversation that does not leave me questioning my own inabilities
Or looking vulnerable.
and looking vulnerable without that psychological innate, the psychological safety that we as human capital representatives are supposed to be responsible for. You mentioned that we are the custodians that need to actually be, we're sort of the middle, the intermediaries between business as
And
well
people.
as people, right? But what you then find is before it even gets to Nozipho, before
It's gone to business by the manager.
it's gone to everybody else except just a one-on-one conversation. Can I check in with you, right? Vulnerability.
Yes.
I need to be, as a line manager, be honest and vulnerable and open to the individual. And remember, it's not a blanket approach.
Yes.
We all come with different issues, right?
Yeah.
Your high performer is one individual that's always going to be driven by what it is that their ambition is driving them to.
Yes.
So if you are a skilled line manager or a resourceful team, you are going to identify when there are not so good days, there are off days, and there are good days.
And you'll lean into that. And you
touch on that.
Yes.
Right? You tap on that because it allows you to then know more than what you could have possibly. Because it's not, sometimes we think that it's just a human body that walks in.
It's people.
It's people.
And I think there's an important aspect about this, that the information that you get as a line manager or as a leader or as even a team member about someone's mental health status, whether they're going through something personal or not, should never be used against them. And I think that's what's happening. And I think perhaps maybe that's the difficult conversations that need to start happening, to say, where have I as a leader ever, whether I intended to or not, used a conversation or information about someone's state of being or state of mind against them or to my advantage or to the advantage of someone else, because that's where it starts.
And it shows up as microaggression.
Yes.
And you're not able to actually pick up, what is actually happening here. It's a big deal.
That topic, that microaggression, we are coming to microaggression, because like this, you can't separate the two. And I do foresee that we're going to have a series of these discussions, the one around psychological safety and the one around microaggression, because it is showing up as microaggression. You can't say, my work was taken away from me because I disclosed I wasn't okay. And they made it seem like they were doing it for me, but I don't feel like it was done for me. We can do great work at building workspaces that celebrate, high performance, that celebrate the person that answered that email at midnight, that promote the person that never goes on leave. But we never are able to answer the question why people are breaking. And maybe that's the sort of it. It's the perception of what does good look like? And unfortunately, good is latched to the psychological processes that we go through. And it's linked to being healthy. What's the one thing, very quickly, that you want to land as a conversation starter in the workplace?
Okay. So to the employees,
Yes.
to approach things from a growth mindset.
Yeah.
What that means is understanding that challenges and difficulties are going to happen.
Yeah.
In different areas of our life. And it allows for development and growth if you open yourself up to being able to learn through challenges, as opposed to a fixed mindset, which sees things from you either have it or you don't.
Yeah.
And that then limits the ability for one to develop coping strategies, tools, and skills to be able to move through life's difficulties. Because at the end of the day, mental health is not the absence of difficulties. It is
Absolutely.
you cope,
Yes.
and continue with routine and responsibilities despite the stresses that you experience.
Lindi?
Sure. I think for me, it's knowing when and how to set boundaries. I know it's a term that is very
Loosely
used for both sides. Yeah, both sides.
Yeah.
It's knowing when to have the self-respect and the self-release.
Yeah.
That we spoke about earlier on, in terms of when to say no, but the no that lands in a very safe environment as well, that is received with the care that is intended. Let's not just use the words care and, being there for people. Whereas when it comes to KPIs, the conversation
It's different.
changes,
Yes.
right? And you see the shift as a human capital professional. You're sitting there and you're like, wait, this was not the conversation that we had.
We planned
But it also takes an individual that has chosen the space that they find themselves to be the one that they own.
Okay.
Because when you own your profession, you are able to say, hold on, that's not part of the conversation that we had in the beginning of the year, right? Because that allows the individual and the employee to have the psychological safety to be able to say, I did explain in the beginning that I had issues around the fact that I can't be answering emails after 5 o'clock. That shouldn't be an issue, right? Because according to people's employment contracts, that's what we write, say 8 to 5. But the moment somebody answers after 5 o'clock, they are creating a pattern that now the employer gets used to, right? And the expectation is set.
Yes.
What we do not use as people are the tools that are made available to us. Like Outlook. Outlook has got a setting that actually says out of office, right? If you're out of office.
My working times are from this and this.
And that side. And somebody can even put it on their signature to say, you don't have to respond to my emails now. Right?
Those boundaries.
Those boundaries that are safe for you,
Yeah.
but that other people are also going to respect, because
Absolutely.
if you allow us to bend those rules that you create,
We'll always be bending.
don't try it again.
So growth,
Nature.
growth mindset and boundaries. And I think those are two very important. And accountability. Owning what you then create as a precedence for other people to teach you. I think beyond the growth mindset and the ownership, there are a lot of things that we still do need to unpack, and we will have time to unpack that. However, the reality is this, and I think it's the one thing that I do take away. We cannot Wellness Wednesday our way out of unrealistic deadlines. And I can tell you for free, fruit baskets are not fixing what is systemically broken. And the more we do less in addressing it and having open, honest conversations, the more we perpetuate the problem. I think what's important is for you viewers at home, if you are a leader and you are not perfect, but you recognize I may have perpetuated a problem, this very epidemic we are talking about, please feel free to use the link in the descriptions and reach out. These two ladies here, including myself, are very, very versed in helping executives and leaders design programs and implement them that create the outcomes that not just the business needs, but that your employees deserve. Don't be the leader that just simply puts the poster on the wall. Be the leader that actually walks the talk. And if you're an employee, please also use the link in the description, because it doesn't happen if it doesn't start with you. The thing that you need to remember is you're not a failure. You are not weak. In fact, you are responding exactly how you should be responding. It is your behavioral prerogative to do so. You just need support. And again, we are here to create the platform and give you the tools and the resources for that support. With that being said, ladies, I want to thank you so much for your time. It's been such a fruitful conversation, but I think it's been one that's very important. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Suited Sneakers. And I always say, one person's lesson is another person's gift. And if this has been your gift, subscribe, like, and share so that you can pay it forward. And I'll see you next time for another episode of Suits and Sneakers.